Oludara stopped clearing weeds and leaned against the hoe. The wrapper around his waist weighed heavy from the sweat which trickled down his bare chest. He could afford to rest. 3 weeks remained before yam planting, and the field appeared to be in good shape. He watched his 2 younger brothers working farther upfield. As he removed his straw hat to wipe the sweat from his brow, he noticed movement to his left. Bale Akeju, master of the village, approached with another man. As they came closer, he saw that both wore fine indigo robes. Wearing such a rich robe was normal for a Bale, but not for anyone else he knew in the region. Oludara could not imagine what matter would make the Bale come out to his field. It would be much easier to find him in his hut that evening after the day's work. They came straight to him without stopping, and he greeted both with a handshake. The stranger studied him carefully, but it was the Bale who spoke. "Oludara, this man has come all the way from Ketu to speak with you." "Are you Oludara?" asked the man, "the son of one known as the Slayer of Monsters?" "I am Oludara, but my father passed away years ago." "That fact is known to the Oba, for it was he himself who sent me with orders to escort you to Ketu. He wishes to have words with you. I am Oyewole, one of his personal messengers." Bale Akeju gasped at the news. Oludara frowned. "For one such as I to be called before the Oba without warning cannot be good." "You may be right," said Oyewole. "I do not know why he has sent for you, but from my experience, a surprise summons from the Oba is rarely good news. I would not trade places with you right now. Nevertheless, we must leave immediately. The Oba does not like to be left waiting. Take time only to say goodbye to your family and collect clothes for your audience." "Very well, it shall be done." Even though Ketu was only a 2-day walk, it might as well have been on the other side of the world for Oludara. He had only been to Ketu once before, as a child, when his father still lived. He had gone for one of the great festivals and had seen the Oba in full royal attire. He did not remember many details, just the feeling of awe he had experienced upon visiting. The journey was well spent, as Oyewole told him much of the politics and history of Ketu. Oludara liked the man and imagined they could have been friends if Oyewole did not hold a rank in society so far above his. As they neared the city, they passed through a multitude of farms. They then navigated the complex system of bulwarks and moats, the innermost courtyards surrounded by walls twice the height of a man. The locals used different colors and fashions than those in Oludara's village. Massive squares full of wooden stands sat empty, waiting to be filled by crowds and merchandise on market day. Oyewole led him to a guest house and asked him to prepare himself for his audience with the Oba. A young woman helped him draw a bath, and he washed off the red dust accumulated during the trip. For his meeting with the Oba, he vested a short-sleeved robe and tied it around the waist with a sash. A close-fitting cap completed the ensemble. It was not elegant, but the best that could be expected from a poor farming family. Oyewole escorted him to the palace. The sight of the grandiose building, a towering clay construction, awed him. 2 massive gates stood open in front. The guards, upon seeing Oyewole, motioned them through. Warriors guarded the hall inside and out. Most held swords or bows, but some were equipped with Portuguese crossbows. Oludara had heard of them, but never seen one before. As he walked the long hall, he glanced at the brass heads on each side, representations of all past Obas of Ketu. These were interspersed among fine ivory carvings. When he reached the end, he saw the Oba's council, 7 chiefs sitting to one side on lion-skin mats. At the end of the hall stood several eunuchs, the personal servants of the Oba, identifiable by the way they wore their robes bunched upon their shoulders. Drummers and other attendants waited at other locations around the hall. Oyewole shook Oludara's hand goodbye and motioned to a leopard skin mat where Oludara knelt to wait. 2 eunuchs carried a wooden stool to the front of the hall. Oludara could see elaborate carvings covering the stool, but could not make out the details from his vantage point. Shortly after, one of the attendants shouted, "Diale Ketu, Oba Ekoshoni enters." A trumpet blast and drums accented his announcement. The Oba entered, flanked by 2 guards bearing halberds topped with thick bronze blades. Oludara soaked in as much detail as possible in the few seconds that ceremony allowed. The Oba wore a coral collar and silk sash upon his chest. A crown of red beads came to a point above his head, and lines of beads cascaded down from it. Rings around his neck reached up to his mouth and, combined with the beads, left little of his face exposed. As the Oba approached the wooden stool, Oludara and all others in the hall prostrated themselves. After a few moments, they returned to the kneeling position. Oludara kept his eyes pointed down in reverence, but longed to stare at the regality of his lord. "You have been summoned because my diviners consulted the Ifa oracle." Oba Ekoshoni spoke in an even voice, just loud enough for Oludara to hear every word clearly. "They told me to seek the progeny of a man who aided me long ago." Oludara felt honored to hear the voice of the Oba. It was a rare privilege. In public, the Oba whispered through a cowtail whisk, and a eunuch called out his words to the people. "Your father helped me once when I was young," continued the Oba. "With his cunning he killed Soyu, a terrible beast which ravaged the local villages. Now I face a similar problem, so I assume that you are the one I seek." 6 months ago," he continued, "a dragon stopped one of my sons on the road and demanded that a sacrifice, taken from among my vassals, be tied and left at the sacred grove at Orfu every full moon. When my son told me the news, I refused. When the sacrifice was not sent, the dragon went to an outlying farm and killed a family there. The next full moon, I sent 50 warriors to slay the beast. Only a few survived, and they reported that not even the bolts of the Portuguese crossbow could penetrate the beast's scales. Since then, I have sacrificed one of my vassals each month to this creature. I would not continue doing so." After a pause, the Oba spoke again. "I fear the beast cannot be beaten by force alone. Cunning is also required. I hear you have faced many trials, even at your young age. You battled our enemies from Dalma, and I hear that at the age of 16 you tricked and slew the very beast which killed your father." The reminder sent a pang through Oludara, but he pushed it down. "I regret sending such a fine man," continued the Oba, "so recently turned to adulthood on such a terrible task. However, an Oba does not question, he does not ask, he orders. Thus, I order you to do everything in your power to slay the beast. Do you understand?" "Yes," responded Oludara. "It will be an honor to serve the great Oba Ekoshoni." "Very good. I am gladdened to see you here before me. You remind me of your father in both manner and build. I do not know if you came to know the depth of his wisdom. When he slew Soyu, I offered him anything in my power as a reward. He could have chosen riches or land or anything else which could have brought him temporal pleasure in this world. But he was too wise for that. Instead, he asked me to choose a name for his newborn son." At this, the Oba laughed heartily. "He knew the gift would cost me not the price of a yam, but that an Oba surely would choose a princely name. And thus I did. I chose the name Oludara for his son and brought great honor to his family for all generations to come. I have no doubt he will stand by your side in the trial which awaits you." After a pause, the Oba asked, "Do you remember the dagger your father wore?" "Yes." "He carried that dagger because your name was not the only present I gave him. I could not leave such wisdom unrewarded, so I gave him that dagger, one of the greatest treasures in all of Ketu. Since all ivory belongs to the Oba, your village elders rightfully returned it to me upon his death. However, the chiefs agree." He held a hand toward the 7 counselors for emphasis, and they nodded in response. "That it would make a fine present for you now, to help with what you must face." The Oba motioned with a wave, and a eunuch carrying a fine brass tray appeared from behind him. The eunuch knelt before Oludara, holding out the tray and presenting the dagger which lay upon it. The dagger was exactly as Oludara remembered it, fine ivory tinted red from palm oil. The hilt contained intricate carvings. The side with the lightning bolt rested on top. The sight flooded him with memories of his father, but he shook them off and reached down to accept the gift, not wanting to appear unappreciative. As Oludara touched the hilt, a strange sensation passed through his arm, causing him to jerk in surprise. The Oba saw his reaction and said, "The enchantment on that dagger is strong. It is rumored to come from Shango himself. Whether or not that is true, not even I can say. But guard it well, because you will never again find its equal." Oludara grasped the hilt firmly and lifted the dagger. The eunuch with the tray walked away. "The Ayakeri controls my treasury," said the Oba. She will see to it that you have whatever equipment you need." "Great Oba," said Oludara, "I must first see the beast if I am to try and defeat it." "Of course. However, no one knows where it lives. You must go to Ofru on the next full moon, 2 days hence, and witness the sacrifice. Hide yourself as possible, for the beast is treacherous. May Olorun protect you." The Oba rose, and everyone prostrated again. Before the Oba even left the hall, Oludara's mind swirled with thoughts of the task before him. Thank you. So these are, a lot of people call these sword and sorcery, and definitely there's a lot of influence from sword and sorcery, Fritz Leiber and others. And but I like to think of them as historical fantasy because the historical part is very much ingrained in these stories and very important to them. And I have this copy here. Does anyone want to take this? Okay. In the back. And yeah, I'll sign. Okay, so thank you all very much.